Is Super Mario Land 2 6 golden coins still good? Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins is a platformer released on the Game Boy in 1992. Like the first Super Mario Land, Shigeru Miyamoto was not involved with the game's development, resulting in a title with many unique gimmicks, enemies, and other ideas not present in Mario games at the time. It's a title I've personally been a fan of since the 90s, beating the game dozens of times over the years. In fact, almost 8 years ago, I summarized my experience as such. Overall, Super Mario Land 2 is one of my favorite platforming games of all time. Despite the limited color palette of the original Game Boy, the levels still somehow seem vibrant and interesting. Despite the lack of difficulty, there is still plenty of replay value to be had in going through and finding all of the little secret nooks and crannies. A top-notch soundtrack and silky smooth controls round off what I find to be a timeless classic. So, does Super Mario Land 2 still live up to my childhood memories or my 2009 assessment? Let's dive in. Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins is light on story. Basically, while Mario was off in Sarasa Land in the first game, his rival Wario took over his castle in Mario Land and turned all of the inhabitants against the plumber. When Mario returns, he has to make things right by collecting the 6 golden coins needed to unlock his castle and then defeat Wario to break the spell placed upon the land. Pretty simple stuff, and I wouldn't have it any other way. After starting Super Mario Land 2, there is just a single level to play through, and this acts as a primer or tutorial, introducing the player to the main game mechanics. Per usual, the mushroom will transform Mario into Super Mario, allowing him to break bricks with his head. Additionally, pressing down will allow Mario to break bricks from above, with an extra life acting as the bait to teach this maneuver. Returning after a brief hiatus is the Fire Flower, giving Mario access to fireballs, which can take down enemies in addition to breaking designated blocks. Also returning is the Star, which makes Mario invincible. While invincible, you'll notice a little numbered counter increasing with each enemy taken down. After 5, you'll start gaining additional lives, which I find pretty cool. At the end of each level is also a bell, and hitting it will unlock a minigame after the level. Here, you can earn power-ups such as the Fire Flower, as well as up to 3 extra lives. As you can see, Super Mario Land practically gives these things away, and you'll find yourself racking up an impressive life count in no time at all. With most of the gameplay mechanics now learned, Super Mario Land 2 gets blown wide open, and Mario can move about the world and enter any of the game's 6 zones, in any order. Each zone follows a specific theme and contains their own mini-map, though the levels in the zone must be played through in order. Cooler still, I love how the levels inside the zone somewhat match the mini-map. In Tree Zone, for example, the adventure begins on the ground level, and the scenery changes as you progress. Once inside the tree, for example, you'll encounter some sap. As you near the top of the tree, you'll encounter a beehive as well as a leaf-filled level with bottomless pits. You know, because you're high up in the air. The attention to detail is terrific, and I love how varied each of the stages are, despite all being linked together in a single zone. This is also a good time to mention the carrot power-up, which turns Mario into Bunny Mario. This gives Mario some unique abilities like hovering, the ability to rapidly jump, and float through goo, as well as giving Mario a far higher jump. However, in Bunny Mario form, you cannot use the downward spin maneuver, offering a minor trade-off to the increased flexibility provided. The final level of each zone is where a boss can be found. Here in Tree Zone, there is a large bird with a fairly simplistic pattern. Simply jump on it as it follows a basic U-shaped trajectory. After 3 hits, it will go down, rewarding Mario with one of the coins needed to unlock his castle. From here, I'll work my way clockwise through the remaining zones. Next up is Space Zone, which is accessed through this large hippo. The initial level is actually pretty cool, allowing Mario to jump into a bubble and float about the level, rather than traveling through the water. Instinctively, the player will want to see if the game will actually allow them to skip the entire level without punishment, and it does. It is here you'll discover secret exits, marked with a star. This is the entrance to Space Zone. The first of these is a traditional platform level, though Mario does have an increased jump arc thanks to the reduced gravity. And he cannot run, presumably because he's in a spacesuit. The second level changes things up even farther, with a forced scrolling level and even less gravity, allowing Mario to float around similar to the bubble level earlier. The space levels are both fun diversions to the main platforming gimmick and help prevent the adventure from feeling repetitive or stale. In any case, the zone ends with a boss battle against Tatanga from the first game, and after 3 hits, he too goes down, rewarding Mario with another one of the 6 golden coins. From here, Mario arrives in Macro Zone, but not before getting shrunk down on the main map. This neat gimmick allows the normally pedestrian environment of a house to be a lot more interesting, as everything is huge. Like Tree Zone, these levels also loosely follow the level locations on the map, from the front yard to the upstairs library, and everything in between. You even make your way up a chimney, marking the transition from downstairs to upstairs, which is pretty awesome. Now is also a good time to talk about a few other mechanics found in Super Mario Land 2. First, you do not receive an extra life after collecting 100 coins. Instead, the total at the bottom of the screen will continue all the way to 999. Instead of receiving extra lives, you actually use the coins as currency in the little gambling hut found in Mario Land. Depending on the amount of currency you have, you can score basic items and power-ups, or gamble it all away hoping to score 99 lives. I'm not sure if this really adds anything to the gameplay, but I do find it clever. Collected coins are used as literal currency. You'll also notice a second counter with a little enemy icon. Super Mario Land 2 actually keeps track of the enemies defeated, and after killing 100, a star will fall from the sky. Again, this isn't game-breaking by any means, but does give the player an incentive to defeat enemies rather than avoid them. Of course, Macro Zone ends with another boss encounter, this time against a rat. And again, after 3 hits, it will go down and Mario receives a 3rd golden coin, marking the halfway point of the journey. Pumpkin Zone is next, offering Halloween-themed levels to platform through. These play out as expected, including the return of ghosts and plenty of color-changing platforms. There are also invisible bricks, which will block your escape, forcing you to backtrack. Of all of the zones in Super Mario Land 2, Pumpkin Zone feels the most familiar. As has been the case up to this point, the final zone features a boss battle, this time against a witch. While on the surface, this is a clever boss, with the tops of the kettles blowing off, forming interesting obstacles to avoid, she too goes down after 3 hits, and the boss fight is over before it gets started. With just 2 golden coins to go, Mario finds himself in Mario Zone, which is a giant toy in the shape of Mario. As a kid, I found this absolutely awesome, and even looking at this amazing structure today, I can't help but smile as I imagine Mario actually commissioning a structure in his image. In any case, this is a toy-themed land. Level 1 has Mario make his way through the inner workings of the toy through various gears. The second level is bubble-themed with a ton of one-way jumps allowing you to go up but not down. The third level features plenty of conveyor belts, riding platforms, and a healthy dose of Bullet Bill. Finally, the 4th level is brick-themed with buzzsaws. Mercifully, the boss of Mario Zone is actually 3 bosses, a play on the 3 little pigs. And each pig requires 3 hits to take down, meaning this boss encounter takes a whopping 9 hits to successfully defeat. It's still easy, but I do wish more of the bosses were on the lengthier side, like this one. As Mario nears the end of his quest for the 6 golden coins, we arrive at Turtle Zone. This is the underwater portion of Super Mario Land 2. Again, the level themes match what has been seen on the minimap. The first is a fairly typical water level with seaweed, blowfish, and sharks. The second level takes place in a submarine with tight corridors with plenty of little rooms. Finally, the adventure ends inside a whale. I know I keep repeating this, but the level of variety inside a single zone is amazing. Less amazing is the boss. It's worth noting all of these can be taken out with fireballs as an alternative to bopping them 3 times. With the 6 golden coins now collected, the gates to Mario's castle open and Mario can finally enter his residence and take on Wario. Surprisingly, this final cave offers a legitimate challenge. Each floor contains new obstacles to learn, from timing-based platforming, different fireballs, trip switches on the floor, and jumping challenges with with collapsing platforms in addition to moving platforms. To make things tougher, there are no checkpoints here, making for one epic level. Even the boss fight itself is elevated. Wario is massive and jumps on the ground, paralyzing Mario. You need to plan your jumps around the paralysis, avoiding the obstacles from the ceiling as well as the big guy himself, while still landing on his head 3 times, but things don't stop there. In the next room, Wario will power up with a carrot, making him even trickier to avoid. Again, you need to bop him 3 times to proceed. Finally, Wario grabs a fire flower, again upping the ante. After 3 more hits, however, Wario's defeated and then cries like a baby. This breaks the spell cast upon Mario Land. The inhabitants as well as the castle return to normal, and with that, the adventure comes to an end and the credits roll. Moving on, I have to talk about the graphics. Despite being a 1992 release, these are among the most detailed visuals I've ever seen on the Game Boy. First off, everything is proportioned correctly. Mario is regular sized, as are all of the enemies. This makes Super Mario Land 2 feel more in line with the graphical style found in Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, and I appreciate the increased detail over the first game. Next, Super Mario Land 2 utilizes the limited 2-bit color depth better than nearly any other Game Boy I've ever played. First, backgrounds come in nearly every color, ranging from white to black and the 2 colors in between. This is a massive leap ahead of most games, which rely on sparsely detailed white backgrounds. Additionally, there are a lot of patterns, both vertical and horizontal, as well as diagonal, to add contrast to the background and foreground elements, again adding detail within the constraints of the hardware. I also like how the developers changed the 1-ups from mushrooms to hearts to make sure the player could see a stark difference between the 2 items with the limited colors available. Mario even sports a feather after snagging a fire flower, again working around the system's constraints. The end result is an exceptionally visually diverse game that often feels like it's putting far more colors on the screen than it actually is. Unfortunately, as a result of the large sprites, smooth animations, and pleasing backgrounds, is an inconsistent frame rate. At times, it hums along without issues, but it will get choppy when there are too many objects on the screen. I'm not terribly offended by this, but in an age of flawless frame rates, others might be more bothered. What I think everyone can agree on, though, is the quality of the soundtrack. It's sensational. There are a handful of tracks, and most are shared between all of the zones, but it doesn't matter. Be it fast-paced or lazy violin strings, each is wonderful in its own way, giving the levels of Mario Land a distinct feel. And because most play throughout the adventure rather than specific zones, they never wear out their welcome. And of course, the sound effects are all top-notch, from the jumping sound to collecting coins, and even some enemy-specific notes like the wing flaps of these bats or the hoot of an owl. The attention to detail found in the visuals department is matched in the audio. Despite the minimum hardware available, Super Mario Land 2 perfectly encapsulates the 8-bit sound the Game Boy is known for. So, with all of that out of the way, we arrive back to the question asked at the beginning of the video. Is Super Mario Land 2 6 golden coins still good? In my opinion, Super Mario Land 2 has one major issue. The game is far too easy. Now, I don't know what the age of your average Game Boy gamer was back in 1992, and perhaps it was younger than your average gamer is today. And in fact, I remember certain levels actually giving me problems as a kid, such as the floaty space zone level and even some of the bosses. But in 2017, Super Mario Land 2 should be a cakewalk for most gamers of any skill level. The first problem is the open structure of the game. After the tutorial level, there are 6 different possible zones you could start from. This means each of the level 1 stages in the 6 zones has to be somewhat easy, accounting for all possible starting points for a new player. To be fair, levels tend to get more challenging as each zone wears on, but once you defeat a boss and move on to the next zone, you're starting back at an easy level. Perhaps the zones should have been presented in a more linear way, giving the designers a chance to really flex their designing muscle with later levels. As is, the experience feels somewhat handicapped from a challenge standpoint. The abundance of extra lives certainly compounds the problem. However, despite the lack of challenge, there is something strangely addicting about Super Mario Land 2, something that has kept me coming back for nearly 25 years. First, the game is incredibly replayable. Scattered about the Mario Land map are levels that you can clearly see, but cannot get to. Like we learned in the Hippo stage, there are hidden exits found in some levels. If you do find one of these, you'll be taken along a path to the hidden level. Generally speaking, these are packed with bonus lives and other goodies, giving incentive to actually seeking them out in the first place. While the core game lacks difficulty, these hidden exits can be challenging to figure out. Oftentimes, you'll need a specific item to unlock the alternate path. Like the fire flower to break some blocks guarding a pipe, or floating with the bunny ears to a platform not otherwise accessible. Cooler still, others require Mario to be normal size to get through. In fact, there are shortcuts for regular Mario and even some secret areas containing bonuses only accessible by taking damage and getting small. It's pretty cool, and I like that special areas are only available when equipped with an appropriate power-up, or lack thereof. Needless to say, while easy, the levels are absolutely packed to the brim with areas to explore and secrets to find and discover. It makes for a game that continues to entertain after multiple playthroughs. There's also little doubt Super Mario Land 2 is an exceptionally polished game. I don't just mean the graphics and sound either. The level design is exceptional. I love all of the little sections where you can speed through, avoiding perfectly placed enemies and obstacles, rewarding those who have memorized the levels. It's obvious the designers meticulously placed nearly every item on the screen, and nothing in Super Mario Land 2 feels haphazard. Everything has a purpose. Even the star power-up is usually placed in a way to ensure the player can clear out 5 or more enemies and earn an extra life. Little touches like this greatly enhance the overall experience, and Super Mario Land 2 always feels thoughtful. I also love the diversity in the game. I've already mentioned the different set pieces, but things don't stop there. Super Mario Land 2 features a slew of enemies, like fish cows and Jason masks with knives through them and teddy bears bouncing on beach balls. Even the sharks have jagged teeth and boxing gloves. It's awesome, and all of the different enemies, some which are immune to jumping or fireballs, really help Super Mario Land 2 stay engaging from beginning to end. While Super Mario Land 2 fails to provide a decent challenge, it does manage to succeed at being an absolute blast to play. Everything about the game feels deliberate, from the enemy behavior to platform placement. Mario's jump arc is perfect for the obstacles presented, and despite the small playfield available thanks to the Game Boy's resolution, there is no screen crunch whatsoever. Super Mario Land 2 does a masterful job being aware of the hardware limitations, from the excellent use of 2-bit color to the overall level flow. The adventure contains no blind jumps or leaps of faith, and very few, if any, surprise enemies. While Super Mario Land 2 is easy for sure, it also lacks the frustrating moments found in other 8-bit games of the time. So yeah, Super Mario Land 2 is still a great game. The attention to detail is still outstanding, the power-ups all serve multiple purposes, the controls are terrific, the alternate gameplay styles like force scrolling and anti-gravity keep things interesting, and the massive amount of secret areas and levels make Super Mario Land 2 a real trip to play through multiple times. Add in some slick visuals and some awesome chiptunes, and you have an incredibly enjoyable 2D platforming experience that is nothing short of amazing.